Okay, in this recording, I'm going to show you how to read your career in the astrology chart. So I was thinking about this earlier today about how I'm basically going to be unemployed in a couple of weeks. It's not that big a deal, but I am curious as to where I'm going to go. So I went into my astrology chart and started looking for some really good, really basic indicators of the career. And it's kind of surprising what they would be. In common astrology, we're taught that maybe the midheaven or Saturn or planets like that show you what your career is. That's true, but I guess what we'll be looking at in this recording is not so much the career, but more like the daily duties approach. And when you're looking for something that you do on a day-to-day basis, if you're familiar with astrology, then you know that you're really looking at Mercury. But one thing that I didn't know until I started doing some of the research on some of this stuff is that another really important planet for just drawing things to you is Venus. Venus is not directly associated with the career, but it is uh, basically tied to the things that you summon to yourself. And so these aspects, Mercury-Pluto, Mercury-Ascendant, and Selene-Ceres are all tied more to the career, while Venus-Mars, Venus-Jupiter, Venus-Saturn, and Venus-Chiron are all tied to what you attract to yourself. So I'm going to talk about that in this recording. Now, let me note a couple of other things. So in order to interpret this, I'm using a table from my book, all 144 aspects. So this is a table at the end of chapter 33, and I'll be using this to interpret some of the higher aspects. And that's what you see over here. Now, on this screen, I have the basic angles. Now, if you haven't looked at any of my videos on this stuff, all these numbers are basically the different aspects that you have in your astrology chart. So, for example, this person here, who is an esthetician, has a square. The square is the fourth harmonic between Venus and Mars. So her Venus and Mars are square to each other. But this person, who is a manager, works with the military, and also does improv on stage, has a septile. So, you kind of have to know a little bit about what these numbers are, but more or less you can look at the standard astrology chart and see it. Now, most of your astrology programs aren't going to present things like this. Instead, it's going to present it as the usual symbols. Tens are deciles, twos are oppositions, ones are conjuncts, and so on. I've just got it in this database format so that I can see several people at once. Now, let's go ahead and get started on these aspects. So, Mercury-Pluto, why would Mercury-Pluto be associated with the career? Mercury is building common ground between yourself and a situation that you're thinking about, and Pluto is social pressure. So in addition to its basic interpretation as kind of like hidden meaning and investigation and things like that, Mercury-Pluto tells you about how you are pressured to build common ground with the things that you encounter. And you can imagine that this is daily duties, but daily duties which connect to social pressure. Mercury-Ascendant is very similar. It's actually kind of weak, but really I found that it wasn't really Mercury-Ascendant that told me stuff about your career. It was more like anti-Mercury, anti-Ascendant, also known as the descendant. You can read more about that in my book. But basically, Ascendant is your approach to new things. Mercury is your common ground building. So you might conclude that as you're approaching new situations, you're connecting common ground, and this is a lot like the daily job. You also have Selene-Ceres. Selene is your talent, and Ceres is your taking care of people. So you have a talent for taking care of people, but I also call it care bullying because Ceres, you're really more like a bully to people as well. So Selene-Ceres shows where you are so talented at making people do things your way that it's just kind of old hat. Mercury-Selene is very, very interesting. You have to read about it in my first book, Full Spectrum Astrology. It's associated with talented service, but it's also associated with the talents that are so strong in your childhood that they come out even when you're very, very young. And if you have certain aspects, this is tied to child abuse, like an abusive or traumatic background. If you have certain aspects that make you prone to being taken advantage of as a child. But in general, Mercury-Selene shows those talents that you had when you were young. Okay, so let me start by just interpreting a couple of these so you can see what's going on. You see that this person here, who is a social media personality, basically, um, she has as her pressured problem solving a decile, which means she exerts authority in her career, and that's basically how she gets her attention when she's going out. The singer has a 33. Now 33 is a higher aspect, and it basically is an entertainer, so that makes sense. This esthetician has illusion, and so she's pressured to make common ground in the world of illusion and how people look. This artist here has a 21, and 21s I talk about in all three books. Those are two noviles, and well, it's art and creativity. It makes sense. In fact, all of these are going to basically line up with what these people do. Let's see, now let me go on to the Venus stuff. Venus is one-to-one communication, and so you've got a partner. You've always got a partner when you're dealing with Venus, and because you've always got a partner, the effect is that you basically summon a partner whenever you're using your Venus. So you could be talking to yourself, but you would be your own partner. Venus brings things to you. So with Venus-Mars, you summon influence over another person. And so you've got this individual here who is an investor, and they are known for being able to command what they want because they've got this 13. It is a 2 conjunct, and that makes them a personality. And you can see that over here, they have a public persona right there. So they have a public persona for being able to summon influence over other people, and that's how you read this. Venus-Jupiter is kind of weak. I put it in there because it was sandwiched between two other ones that made sense, but this is where you summon a public image. So for example, this psychic here is able to summon a public image for getting attention, gathering attention. So that's very interesting. If you didn't know that perhaps his image was going to be for the attention that he gathers, then you might see that he's known for his charisma here. And then you've got Venus-Saturn. Venus-Saturn summons your restrictions, and I found that it also summons duty as well. So these are the things that you are obligated to take care of in your daily doing. So if you look at this, you can see, for example, that this academic person is required to basically deal with lots of information. That's what undeciles are about. Lastly, you've got Venus-Chiron. Venus-Chiron is going to summon the therapy kind of setting, but that's actually kind of vague. And so I like to read this one as anti-Venus, anti-Chiron. And anti-Chiron is where people are messed up. The people around you are messed up. And anti-Venus is your attention getter. I talk about all this in the third book with anti-planets and everything. And it makes more sense if you think about it that way, because now you're summoning attention from everybody who is messed up. So essentially, Venus-Chiron is going to tell you what everyone looks at you for, which they wish they had. Now, I only have a couple of more minutes in this recording, so let me go on to a couple of advanced aspects so you can see how if you read aspects higher than the basic 12, like conjuncts and trines and squares and all of that other stuff, threes or trines, for example, you can go way, way, way past this. So for example, why do I have 33s and 21s? I have those because they're smaller than conjuncts and I wanted to fill in the blanks. But in this particular file, I can change the resolution to cover the 36 aspects, which I talk about in my first and second books. And then I go in the last book to all 144 aspects. That's why it's called that. And then you can have even higher resolution. Now, with higher resolution, you really, really start to get at what these people's careers look like. So let me go ahead and just take this esthetician and then finish the recording with that. This esthetician has a 137 for pressured influence over other people. And a 137 is direct management and control. I know this person, and they will really, truly tell you what to do for the good of your own image. And that's basically what we see here. Also, if you look at this esthetician here, you see that she is obligated to take command over others. So that's what that 17 is. If we look here, that's how you dominate or how you serve. And so she has an obligation to serve others. Okay, this is how you read your career in the chart, or at least how you read your day job. Look at Mercury-Pluto, Mercury-Ascendant, Venus-Mars, Venus-Jupiter, Venus-Saturn, Venus-Chiron, and Selene-Ceres. Look at everything that you have for those angles, and you can get an idea of what the astrology chart tells you, or what all the waves represented in the astrology chart tell you about what you could expect to do for a lasting day job.